The president of our HOA stood in front of 40 people, pointed a picture of my dead brown grass on a projector screen, and told the whole neighborhood that maybe a disabled veteran should consider assisted living if he couldn't keep up with community standards. What she didn't know, every sprinkler, every shower, every backyard pool in that neighborhood was running off a well buried under my land. And by the time she realized that, it was already too late. My name's Cole Bennett. I'm 38, and I live outside Pinehurst, North Carolina, on 17 acres my grandfather bought back in the late 70s. It's quiet out there, mostly pine trees, red clay, cicadas so loud in the summer you almost forget what silence sounds like. Half the land stayed exactly the way my family left it. Gravel drive, old workshop, a wraparound porch I rebuilt with my brother after I got back from overseas. The other half got sold years ago to a developer who built 30 homes and turned it into one of those polished HOA neighborhoods with matching mailboxes, trimmed hedges, and lawns so green they looked fake in August. And honestly, we got along just fine for years. Back in 2016, before the houses were even finished, they had a problem. The county water connection got delayed. Real bad timing. Contractors were already pouring foundations. Buyers were already signing papers. The developer came knocking on my door, sweating through a polo shirt, asking if I'd consider letting them connect temporarily to the deep well on my property. That well mattered to my family. My grandfather drilled it himself in 1986, nearly 400 feet down. Said he trusted groundwater more than politicians and banks combined. He wasn't wrong. Still, I said yes. No charge. Just a handshake agreement and a simple clause he'd scribbled years earlier in the property easement file. Water access remained free as long as neighboring conduct stayed respectful and cooperative. That was enough for me. I'd spent enough years around conflict. Afghanistan took my right leg below the knee and changed plenty more than that. After I came home, peace started feeling like something worth protecting. Helping neighbors felt like part of that. Most folks appreciated it. Then there was Denise Caldwell. Denise became HOA president 2 years after moving in. Mid-50s, always dressed like she was heading to a country club luncheon, drove a white Lexus SUV that somehow always looked freshly waxed. She smiled with her mouth, but not her eyes. The kind of woman who could say, "Bless your heart," and somehow make it sound like a threat. She hated my property, not openly at first. Little comments. "Cole, have you thought about reseeding that front patch?" "Cole, the gravel by the roads drifting toward community property." "Cole, maybe a privacy fence would help with appearances." I'd smile, say I'd think about it, then go back to my own business. That summer was brutal. Weeks with barely any rain. The grass around my house turned gold, then brown. Didn't bother me. I'd switched most of it to native drought-resistant ground cover anyway. I'd rather save water than pretend I lived on a golf course. Apparently Denise took that personally. Tuesday night, the HOA had one of their regular meetings in the clubhouse. I wasn't even planning to go. My neighbor Marcus texted me, "You may want to get down here." That was enough. When I walked in, the room got weirdly quiet. Denise stood at the front with a clicker in one hand and a spreadsheet on the projector behind her. Then she clicked, and there it was. A giant photo of my front yard. Brown grass, gravel, my porch, blown up like evidence in a murder trial. A couple people shifted in their chairs. Marcus just stared at me. Denise gave this polished little smile and said, "Some property owners believe community standards don't apply to them, but appearances affect everyone." Then she looked right at me. Even military service doesn't exempt anyone from basic upkeep. You could feel the room tense. I didn't say anything. Then she added, calm as could be, "If maintaining a property has become physically difficult, there are communities designed for assisted living." A few people gasped. Even Denise's own treasurer looked down at the floor. And right there I felt that old kind of quiet settle in. The kind where everything slows down and your heartbeat gets very clear. Still didn't say a word. I turned around, went home, sat at my kitchen table, opened the old filing cabinet my grandfather kept near the pantry. And under 30 years of paperwork, property tax records, well, permits, hand-drawn maps, I found the easement agreement. I read that clause twice, then once more. Free access to groundwater remains contingent upon respectful, neighborly conduct and may be revoked at landowner discretion. I leaned back in my chair. Outside the kitchen window, across the trees, I could see lights glowing from 30 neat little houses, sprinklers ticking across bright green lawns. And for the first time in years, I smiled. I sat there a long minute with that paperwork in my hands and the kitchen light buzzing over my head, reading my grandfather's handwriting like it had just been written that morning. The paper smelled old, edges yellowed, ink faded in spots, but the clause was clear as day. Respectful, neighborly conduct. Revocable at landowner discretion. I actually laughed. Not loud, just one sharp breath through my nose. Because Denise had spent the last year acting like my property was some embarrassing stain on her brochure-perfect neighborhood. And all along she'd been watering her lawn, filling her pool, running every faucet in her house with water coming straight up from under my feet. I slept better that night than I had in weeks. By sunrise, I already had coffee going and my laptop open. I called a property attorney in town named Harold Mason. Older guy, plain-spoken, been around forever. I told him everything. He got quiet for a second and then said, "Cole, legally speaking, Denise may have just created the dumbest HOA problem I've heard this year." That felt encouraging. By noon, we had paperwork drafted. Simple, professional, no threats, no emotion. The free water easement would terminate in 30 days. A new service contract would begin immediately after. Base access fee, $180 per month per household. Usage payé séparément. Connection infrastructure fee, $4,500 due up front. 10-year service agreement. And my favorite clause, any HOA landscaping restrictions involving irrigation or drought compliance would require written approval from the landowner. Harold laughed when he read that line. Said petty. I told him strategic. He said fair enough. By late afternoon, I printed 30 copies, slipped every one into an envelope, then walked the neighborhood, house by house, mailbox by mailbox. Some folks waved. Some smiled. Nobody knew what was coming. I saved Denise's for last. Her place sat on the corner with this giant curved driveway and a backyard pool visible through decorative iron fencing. Her sprinkler system was running while I walked up, middle of another dry week. Water spraying 6 different directions like she owned a private resort. I placed the envelope in her mailbox. Turned around. Didn't even make it back to my driveway before my phone rang. Denise. I answered. "Cole," she snapped. "What exactly is this?" "My new water agreement." "This is outrageous." "No," I said. "Tuesday night was outrageous. You can't charge residents thousands of dollars." "I can. This feels like extortion." I leaned against the porch railing. "Denise, drilling a replacement well around here would run close to $90,000. Pumps and filtration on top of that. You're welcome to compare bids." Silence. Then she hissed, "You're punishing the entire neighborhood because your feelings got hurt." That one actually got under my skin a little, because she really believed that. Like respect was optional. Like public humiliation was just HOA business. I kept my voice calm. "No, Denise. I'm ending a free arrangement because your leadership made cooperation impossible." Then I hung up. By evening, the neighborhood Facebook page was chaos. People posting screenshots, questions, arguments, a few angry reactions, a few comments saying Denise had pushed too hard. Marcus called me laughing. "Buddy, you dropped a hand grenade in there." I said, "Wasn't trying to." "Maybe not," he said. Still exploded. The HOA called an emergency meeting the next afternoon. This time the clubhouse was packed. Every chair filled. People standing along the walls. I almost didn't go. Marcus convinced me. "Come watch." So I did. Denise stood at the front, trying hard to look composed, but she already had that panicked edge in her voice. She kept saying things like temporary negotiation and community unity. Then the board introduced an engineer they'd hired that morning to assess alternatives. Nice guy, thin glasses, tablet in hand, and he did not care about Denise's feelings. He explained county hookup delays, depth estimates, replacement drilling costs, permit timelines. Then he pulled up water usage reports, and the room changed because Denise's property, one house, was using nearly half the neighborhood's monthly water. People literally turned in their chairs. The engineer stayed neutral. Primary contributors appear to be ornamental irrigation and pool maintenance. Marcus leaned over and whispered, "Oh man." Denise tried cutting in. "My landscaping investment protects neighborhood values," a man from the third row interrupted. 47%? Then a woman near the back stood up. Retired schoolteacher named Linda. Sweetest lady you'll ever meet. Except when she's mad. She looked straight at Denise and said, "You publicly embarrassed this man while using more water than 10 families combined?" You could feel the shift happen. The board tried calming people down. Didn't work. Then Marcus stood. "I've lived here 6 years. Cole never charged a dime. Never complained. My kids drink that water every day." And Denise decided to put his yard on a projector. A couple people clapped. Denise's treasurer wouldn't even look at her. Then came the vote. Accept the new agreement. Or attempt a new independent water project. Denise argued hard. Said paying me created dangerous precedent. Said it rewarded non-compliance. Said I was being vindictive. Nobody bought it. 26 hands went up immediately. Then 2 more. Only 4 voted no. Denise looked stunned. Like she truly believed she still controlled the room. But she didn't. Not anymore. By the next morning, payments started arriving. Checks. Guide confirmations. Signed contracts. One after another. Marcus brought his personally and handed it over with a grin. Worth every penny. Linda dropped hers off with homemade banana bread. Said, for emotional damages. That nearly killed me. By day 3, every household had signed. Except Denise. Of course. Then Friday afternoon, she showed up at my porch. No Lexus. No sunglasses. Just Denise standing there in sandals holding paperwork. She looked exhausted. Older somehow. And angry in that quiet way. "I need clarification on billing cycles." I opened the screen door. "Sure." She hesitated. Then finally said it. I shouldn't have made that comment. Not warm. Not heartfelt. But real enough. I nodded. Probably not. She handed over the contract. Signed. Connection fee attached. Then looked over my shoulder at the dry native grass around my porch. And asked, almost bitterly, "You really prefer this?" I looked at the wind moving through the tall grass. The pines swaying behind the barn. Sun hitting the clay road. And honestly, yeah, I said. "I really do." She stared for a second, then walked away. And I thought that was the end of it. Turns out, it was only the beginning. For a little while, things actually got quiet. Which, honestly, was all I ever wanted in the first place. The neighborhood settled down. The HOA newsletter stopped sounding like courtroom paperwork. People waved again when they drove by. Marcus started bringing his dog over to run around my backfield on weekends. Linda kept dropping off baked goods like she'd appointed herself official peace ambassador between my property and the subdivision. And Denise stayed mostly invisible. She missed the next board meeting. Then the one after that. A month later, word got around she'd resigned as HOA president. Nobody sounded surprised. Summer rolled into fall, and for the first time in years, the whole place felt lighter. Then the billing cycle hit. That was where reality really landed. Because numbers have a funny way of ending arguments. My attorney helped set up proper metering and monthly statements. Nothing fancy, just clean reports. Household averages looked normal. Most families adjusted pretty fast. Water usage dropped. People fixed leaks. Shortened sprinkler timers. A few swapped landscaping. And then there was Denise. Her first bill came in just under $7,000. I almost thought there had to be an error. There wasn't. Pool maintenance. Six irrigation zone. Decorative fountains. Pressure washing. All of it. I saw her standing at her mailbox that afternoon, holding the invoice with both hands, staring like she expected the paper to argue with her. Marcus texted me 10 minutes later. "Did you survive sending that one?" "Barely." I wrote back. The funny part? My own annual water costs came out under $1,000 because I wasn't trying to force green grass through Carolina drought. The native grass stayed golden spots, soft and tall, moved with the wind, came right back when rain finally returned. Exactly like it was supposed to. And every month payments came in. Steady. Reliable. 30 households. Everyone on time. By the end of the quarter, I sat at my kitchen table staring at the total. A decent amount of money. more than I ever intended to make from any of this. And I kept thinking about where all of it started. A projector screen, a room full of neighbors, a woman deciding respect wasn't necessary because she had authority. And that sat wrong with me, because I hadn't done any of this for profit. Never wanted to. So I drove into Fayetteville and met with the Veterans Medical Center. Walked into the donation office. Nice lady at the desk asked where the funds were coming from. And I paused, then smiled. Neighborhood water compliance. She laughed. Thought I was joking. I donated the entire quarter. Every dollar. Then I added a note to be included with the contribution. Provided in honor of Denise Caldwell and the Meadow Ridge HOA. With appreciation for supporting veteran respect and community accountability. Maybe that sounds petty. Maybe it was. But when the first acknowledgement letter got mailed out and Denise saw her own name attached to a veterans hospital donation funded by the residents, she nearly turned against me. Marcus said she looked like she bit into a lemon. Linda thought it was wonderful. She called it poetic citizenship. That woman had a talent for phrasing. By winter, my property looked the way it always had. Simple, quiet, pines creaking in cold wind, the porch light glowing at sunset. And the neighborhood next door had changed too. Not dramatically, just enough. People talked more. The board got replaced. Rules got loosened. The obsession with appearances dialed down a notch. Kids started cutting through the trail near my back fence again. Neighbors stopped by to talk. A few even asked about drought-resistant landscaping. Funny how fast perspective changes when the water bill becomes personal. Then one evening in early spring, I saw Denise. She was standing near the edge of her driveway while landscapers pulled out one of her irrigation lines. No pool fountain running. No sprinklers. Just quiet. She noticed me watching. Walked halfway toward the road. Hands in her jacket pockets. And for a second, I thought she was gearing up for round two. Instead, she said, "I underestimated you." I leaned against the fence post. Probably. That almost made her smile. Almost. Then she looked out over my property. Tall grass moving in the breeze. Sun dropping low through the trees. And she said something I honestly didn't expect. I thought if everything looked perfect, people would respect me. That one landed harder than anything from a meeting. Because suddenly none of it sounded like power. It sounded like fear. I nodded, then said, "Respect usually starts before appearances." She looked down, then back up. Guess I learned that expensive. Looks that way. And that was it. No big apology. No dramatic ending. She walked back toward her house. I went inside, and the wind kept moving through the grass exactly the way it always had. These days the well still runs. The neighborhood still gets water. And every quarter the VA hospital still gets a check. Sometimes Denise's name stays on the donor line. Sometimes it doesn't. Depends how I'm feeling. Now here's what I'm curious about. Was I justified ending the free water after what happened? Or did I go too far once money got involved? If you've ever dealt with a power-hungry HOA, a neighbor who pushed too hard, or a moment where respect turned into a fight nobody expected, drop your story in the comments. I read every one. And trust me, sometimes the quietest house on the road ends up holding the strongest leverage.